Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Old Man and the Read. My name is Jerry. Well, today I'm going to do a video on the books I read in the month of May. Uh, it was kind of an unusual month of books. A few of them were pretty strange, a little peculiar, and anyway, it's an interesting mix, I think, of books that I read. Uh, so the first book I read was uh, Winter Vault by Anne Michaels. And this is a love story between Avery and Jean. And Avery is an engineer and Jean is a botanist. But Jean, or the couple go to Egypt, where Avery is working on a project to transport ancient monuments from areas that are going to be flooded by the construction of the Aswan Dam. While in Egypt, Jean became pregnant, but when she gave birth, the baby was stillborn. And this event changed their relationship, and it led to some troubles and eventually had them separating, even though they both still loved each other. Then Jean met a man, Lejeune, and she has a really strange sexual relationship with him. The book, Anne Michaels writes very poetic books, and this one almost made me wonder if maybe you can't be too poetic. She writes beautiful poetic prose, but the story itself was more poetic and very romanticized, and lots of noble actions going on, and a lot of it seemed a little contrived and really unnatural to how people would normally act. The next book I read was a short story a collection of three short stories by Paul Hayes, and it's titled Divided Heart. And the title story, A Divided Heart, is about an old man who's in a discussion with a younger man, and the old man is a widower, and he is telling the young man a story about when he was on vacation with his wife, and he fell in love with another woman there who was also on vacation. His wife and that woman had become close friends, and his wife was aware of the relationship, but she didn't interfere with it. The second story is Minka, and this is about a young man who stumbles upon a dilapidated house while out hiking. And he meets an old woman there, and she's caring for an injured mule. She has a daughter who has a baby that had been fathered by a judge's son, and she had been abandoned by the judge's son. And then later, the hiker had returned to find the judge's son was having a wedding, and then he saw the old woman out sitting by a pond where her daughter had committed suicide with the baby. And then the third story in it is Rothenburg on the Tuber, and this is about a young artist who meets a sophisticated Russian general's wife while on a train, and after a while he invites her to come to Rothenburg to meet his wife, and his small children. The next book was Legends of Sardina by Grazia Delida. And this is a collection of mythical legends from Sardinia, and they feature a whole variety of devils and witches and other demons. And many of the stories are somewhat religious, have religious undertones. Most are about good versus evil, and it seemed like most of the stories, evil won out. The next book was Frontier by Kanju. This is really a bewildering, confusing, and disorienting book. It begins with Lu Jin, who's the main protagonist, but she fades in and out of the story, and like most of the other characters in the book, it's just very fragmented and surreal. But eventually, it seemed like the story kind of became a cohesive story. But it takes place in a world populated by headless people and wolves, and it's in a place called Pebbletown. Each of the chapters follow a different character, but it's centered around Lu Jin, and most of the book seemed to have kind of a dreamlike quality to it, with events that were unrelated to other events in the book. The next book I read was Terracotta Army by John Mann. This is a nonfiction, and it was really quite good. This talks about the discovery and the excavation of what is known as the Terracotta Army, and also about the ongoing work that's being done. Only a small percentage of it had been dug up when this book was published. It gives a history of the Qin dynasty and the first emperor, and it talks about like the Warring States period, and then about the fall of the Qin dynasty. Just a really well-researched and great book with lots of just fantastic photographs. Next book was A Shining by John Foss, and this is really another peculiar story, but it's about a man who's out driving his car, and he's just out wandering. Whenever he comes to an intersection, he will either turn right, and then the next intersection or crossing, he will turn left. And he just keeps wandering around like that, and eventually ends up on a old rutted forest road. And he keeps going, and the car eventually becomes stuck. He's just miles from anywhere. He sees a small path then leading from where he's at, and so he starts walking up the path, and it's starting to get dark and beginning to snow, and it becomes quite cold and starts hallucinating, and it's just really a strange, surreal story. The next book I read was Stoner by John Williams. Just really a great book, extremely well written. He writes in very short, abrupt sentences, but just beautifully written. But this is about William Stoner. He was born to a humble existence. His parents were poor farmers, but they were barely getting by, but had been able to save up enough money to send William to college to study agriculture. But when he went to college, he eventually or soon changed his major to literature, and then after graduation became an assistant professor. He gets married, but it's mostly a loveless marriage, and has a daughter. And his career never really achieves any greatness or distinction, but he remained a college professor for 40 years until his retirement and then eventual death. So it's not really, there isn't a huge plot to it, but it's just a beautifully written book. And finally, I read The Hanky of Pippens' Daughter by Rosemarie Waldrop. Now, Waldrop is somebody I've read several books by her, or that had been translated by her, and I became fascinated by her. And I read a book of poetry, and so this is the second book I've read, and this is more of a novel. But her own work is both her poetry and prose are identified as experimental, and rightfully so. They're just very abstract. In the introduction to this book, I thought it was interesting because it said when books are described as poetic novels, sometimes it means poetic writing or poetic prose, but it can also be taken as a warning to the reader who expect a story. And that's really true for this book. It really isn't much of a story. Basically the story is about a marriage between a man, Joseph, and Frederica, and her infidelity. Within I think 2 months of the marriage, she has an affair with a man named Franz. In the marriage between Joseph and Frederica, they had 3 children. One of them was fathered by Joseph, and then twins were fathered by Franz. But the book is mostly about the writing itself. It's just exceptionally good. And when Waldrop writes, she doesn't say exactly what is happening. She just writes around the periphery, and it's up to the reader to interpret it and construct what is going on. And so it's quite experimental and abstract, but I enjoyed it very much. It's not the type of book I would read all of the time, but I enjoy it occasionally. So anyway, those are the books I read in May. So I want to thank you for watching, and maybe I'll see you again. Thanks.